Growing up playing with Nerf guns, airsoft guns, paintball guns, and then finally joining my high school's rifle team, my life has been surrounded by guns. Man has used guns since practically the beginning of time. Everything from hunting to being made into kids' toys, guns have served purposes of survival as well as recreation. But are guns really being used for the right reasons? Based on watching the news and reading current events online, I have noticed the possession of guns being used as a repulsive instrument of death. With all the gun violence going on today, what initiative should be taken to find a viable solution? This gave me the idea to investigate the topic of gun control. Whenever you turn on the news or on the TV, almost every media outlet will negatively portray guns. But being raised around them, I have learned many reasons why they are useful and safe in the right hands. With that in mind, to what extent should gun control be enforced? Will having gun control really have an effect on crime? And have past instances of gun control shown any decrease in gun violence? Gun control has played a role in American law and politics for years, dating back to the 1930s. In the article Gun Control in America, How We Got Here, author Gregory Craig mentions how gun laws against machine guns and sawed-off shotguns were placed in response to the violent bloodshed by gangsters such as Al Capone. Since then, a lot of gun-related killings have happened, like the assassination of JFK in the 1960s. I feel that Craig is using these past historic events to accentuate the possible need for gun control to be enforced. There are people who may use these events to see if gun control was really a helpful initiative in reducing gun violence. As I have noticed from the previous statements, it would seem that the government made gun control laws in response to serious events. This makes sense because who wants another mass murder or assassination to occur? As time went on to decrease gun violence, events like the Columbine shooting and later the Virginia Tech shooting occurred. These events put the question of if gun control reduced gun violence to the test. The government is always working on ways to improve gun control laws to reduce crime in America. In a Washington Post article by Jamie Fuller, Fuller talked about how after the Columbine shooting, Congress passed a law for stricter background checks on people purchasing firearms. But how can things like background checks help implement effective gun control measures? When we can better look into the different measures used, then we can see how effective gun control is on crime. The thing about gun control is that it's supposed to help prevent crime and gun violence. I wanted to look into if that is really the case or not. One of my best friends talked to me about how gun control would never really prevent any crime because if a criminal wants someone hurt or dead, they'll find a way around the law. Although I do kind of agree with this statement, that still doesn't explain gun control's effect on crime. To better see whether gun control is effective on crime or not, we must look at both the pros and cons. The cons with trying to implement gun control to be effective are that you can't predict the behavior of the individuals. In fact, you never really know about who is a criminal until the crime has occurred. In a Richard Epstein's article, There's No Easy Solution to Preventing Gun Violence, he talks about how we can't assume rational behavior from criminals. You have to take into account the crazy criminals like Columbine shooters who were ready to die after killing as many people as they could. As effective as for the effectiveness of gun control, it has its pros too. In Epstein's article, he also states how a way that gun control can reduce crime is by taking guns out of the hands of civilians. This would be a helpful thing in some aspects, not bringing up the complaint by people on the Second Amendment rights being taken away. It is a way to prevent the spread of gun violence because there's no gun violence if you take away the gun. That being said, other ways that would help prevent these shootings, as I mentioned before, maybe maybe stricter background checks. On top of that, if civilians are trying to buy a firearm, they should also have to take a safety course along with being properly trained with using it. Today, we're still trying to figure out and decide on what extent should gun control be implemented. Perhaps taking away guns from civilians is too far. People tend to like to hang on to their own property as well as their constitutional rights. That being the case, the thought of having gun control without taking away guns will have to continue to find a way to work. This thought sparked my interest and helped me to come up with my questions stated previously. My thoughts on this topic are that whether or not gun control is needed or not will always be debated. When more gun control laws are passed, it seems as if more problems will form around them. I think the thought of how to have gun control better prevent crime is a brain-racking situation that will spark the curiosity of my audience. Can there be a common ground met with this, or will gun violence never be able to be stopped? So I am studying the topic of gun control so that I may better understand the extent to which gun control should be enforced, the effect that gun control has on crime, and if past instances have demonstrated gun control to cause a decrease in gun violence.